Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast, and thanks so much for checking out the first episode last week. And thank you so much to everyone who came and said hello at Double Comic Con. We really appreciate you stopping by and having a chat. We hope to see you all again soon. This week, Jim and I are talking about our fantasy series Witch. We hope you enjoy, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
I mean, these are just terrific stories. I love, the stories. I'm going to be biased and say, the artwork is terrific as well. Of course I am. But I mean, as terms of just the quality, books, they're just fantastic. They're just really, really fantastic. The print quality and all of that, and they look great. So that's the kind of thing I would want to see in shops. And the thing about drives me crackers is that, and we've talked about how in America, American writers, like, I don't know, Frank Miller, or, just everybody loves them. Everybody in France and Germany, and they have their own heroes. Uderzo and Hergé are national heroes in their country.
Yeah.
And you come along and you go Irish comics, and they say, "Oh no, where's the American section?" It drives me batty. It really drives. I was going to talk about this as well. Sorry, I won't go on. I don't want to dominate. It's really astonishing to me how, I suppose I'm reading it, but and I was working on SSDD earlier on today, and I was thinking about all of these characters and story and threads and and payoff setup and payoffs and everything of Two Pug books, the stories of Two Pug books, and it's just astonishing. It's really, really astonishing because you don't, when you're in it, like whenever I'm just drawing it, I'm in it, so I don't pause to recognize. But all of those characters are in my brain. They're all in my head, and it's only a day like today. For some reason, I just listed them all because I think I was coming on tonight. So I was thinking about it, and then I was thinking about all these characters, and I went, "This is like a universe." It's like all of Image Comics.
Yeah,
like all of them got all these characters in and out. And I think what I wanted to ask you was, maybe we can talk about it later or something. What I wanted to ask you was, what were the comics? Did you read comics all the time? Just in your spare time before you started to write them? What was it about comics in particular you wanted to get into it, or what comics did you read, or what influenced you?
Well, like I've grown up in Ireland back in the 60s. You had Superman, you had like Batman, mostly you got creepy, eerie, those kind of things, horror comics. Vampirella was a huge influence on me. But you really got English comics. You got the Dandy, the Beano, the Victor was a big thing when I was a kid. All adventure stuff, mostly male oriented, and adventure, page turners. By the time I was my early teens, I'd moved on to books. My grandfather was a huge reader, and big influence on me growing up. These days you can become a writer if you want to be a writer. There's online courses, everything's set out for you. It's a lot easier. Back in the 70s, I said I wanted to be a writer. My mother went, "You what? You'll earn a living first, boy," and that's the way it was. So it's okay, I'll be an electrician and then I'll write at night. And then she said, "You're not going to be an electrician, you'll probably kill yourself." So I always read. I was always a writer. I write short stories. When it came to comics, though, I sort of lost interest in my 13, 14, 15. By 15, I stopped reading comics altogether. And I lost touch. Flash forward 20 odd years, and I discovered Wolverine. And the comics had changed, and that they'd gone through Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. Stories had depth. I usually collect books that other people recommend. People say you have to read Saga, or you have to read this, have to read that. And yeah, I get it. I see it. A lot of the books I like, though, they may not be everyone's number one. Like I like Watchmen. It's fabulous, but I prefer League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Much better for me. Yeah, a lot of on my bookshelves upstairs. I've got a lot of Image. The books I read at the moment. I'm reading one called Lazarus by Greg Rucka. It's very good. It's very layered.
Is that a novel? Is it or is it a comic?
It was a comic, and it's collected as trades. I tend to buy trades these days because
okay.
they sit well on the shelf.
Yeah.
Pretty much a collected, So yeah, what I'd be reading at the moment would be things like that. I like Lazarus. I've got a lot of Rick Reminder stuff. Ascender, Descender. Black Science, things like that. Things that are sort of outside the box, not typical superhero fare.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Did you read comics?
Yeah, it was the most obscure thing. Whenever, like you, I was the Beano, the Dandy. I remember the Bruins, Willie, Asterix, and Tintin. Read all of them. That was never. And then there was this gap, as you say, because there weren't any comic shops, so there was literally whatever was in a newsagent. So that was it. And there was nothing. There were no thing. And then I heard in 1989, 1990, there was a comic shop in Belfast, and it was called Dark Horizons. And it was the tiniest place, like tiny. And we went in there. I remember going in there. Now, there was 2000 AD as well. That was about it. That was on and off 2000 AD. But I was done with the Beano, and I would see things, but it wasn't, what you like when you're 11 and 12. And I was running about the streets mostly. But when I was in my 13, 14, 15, there, PJ Holden, I keep talking about him because he's such a good friend. And I would go around to his house, and he was into comics. Like, he was into it. And I don't know where he got his comics from. He had comics everywhere on a shelf and all of this. And he was always drawing and sketching. And he kind of denies this, actually, or he says he forgets that. But to me, he was comics. Like, he was on his way. He was doing his job or going to school and doing his job in order just to do comics. He was always going to go off and do comics. And he was Judge Dredd. He was crazy about Judge Dredd. And he's got one of those minds. He's like an encyclopedia. So I would go around to his house. I was at school with his brother, actually, and knew his family really well. And then we would talk about it, and I'd go, "What are you talking about?" I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know there was a Marvel and DC. I didn't understand. I didn't know that. To me, yeah, Spider-Man and Batman could be in the same. But I don't know. What do you mean? There's two companies? What are you talking about? I had no idea. And then there's this whole tradition of, British comics and who are these guys and how are they related? The X-Men, well, what does that mean? And is he an X-Men? No, they're mutants. And, on and on. Then you'd find out, what Swamp Thing? What does that mean? And he lent me it was in 1988. He lent me the Watchmen, and he said, and the Dark Knight Returns. I was too young for it, I was 13 or 14, something. I was too young, I didn't, but it sank into my head, it sank into my brain. And then I started to take it more seriously at 14, 15, but still there was no comic book shops. But I it was at the same time when I was drawing, I was doing art at school, and began to think, oh, maybe I'm good at this, maybe I can do this. So I was really, really young. And then whenever I discovered a comic book shop, what was it? Because it was around the same time that there was the thing, there was the Batman movie in '89. And I kind of got a head start. I was in on it, that the Batman was the Dark Knight Returns. I was already on that. And then, what was the movie? The Turtles movie came out. And then it just seemed to explode, all those daft superhero movies come out, and then The Shadow came out like a few years later, and and then on we went. So yeah, that was it. That was really toward leaving school, but there wasn't a more obscure thing you could be into. Like I never told anybody at school when I was at school that I had anything to do with comics. You get beaten up. You just get beaten up, and you had all of these. I can't imagine what were you doing before you were able to write these. I mean, was this all just going on in your head before you let it all out?
During my teens, early 20s, I wanted to write, and it was very difficult. I mean, you had old-fashioned typewriters, you didn't even have desktop publishing. There was nothing there. It was an arduous thing to write a book. It would take you 10 years to get a book written, and then no one would publish it, every book in Ireland had to have an Irish slant, or to be whatever it was before chick lit, that's what you had to be. And I would have these ideas, and I'd make up a story in my head and create a character, and then do nothing with it because it would take so long to get it done. And the second you hand it to someone, they start tearing apart, and I got used to that fairly quickly. I mean, I can hand something to anyone and they can say, I don't like it. Fine, what's wrong with it? I don't take it personally, whereas in the rest of my life, I take everything personally. But all these things have been in my head for years and years and years, and I just kept it to myself and just trotted along because you have to make a living, you have to do something else. And life is so full of everything else, especially when you have kids, and it's tough to find the time for a hobby.
Like last night,
So, and the kids come first, always. And when I met a bunch of lads through Haley, my daughter, who were into comics, the first night we saw these guys talk, they said, very same story. They were embarrassed to say they read comics, but suddenly, there was a new way of looking at things. Comics had come of age, and it hit the zeitgeist, Marvel, and it weren't just a superhero story. It was a superhero story with depths and levels, and so Marvel and DC, they went a long way to growing people, taking along with them and saying, like, here's how our characters are now. You can read a Batman from the 60s, and he was a detective back then. He solved a crime. You read from the 90s, he's a dark individual who's in the recesses of his own mind most of the time, and it's as dark in there as is in Arkham, and that's what we got that night. These guys were, it's okay to to have these dark thoughts and to follow this morally dubious character like the Punisher. No one's going to blame you. And that's what I like with modern comics. We have become acceptable. It's become part of the culture. This geek culture now has exploded because there's money in it. The people who are buying these things aren't parents for like the small kids. We save the pocket money up to go to Easton's to buy paperbacks. Kids nowadays, they get a computer game with 60, 70 quid for their favorite character, Batman character. They go and see the movie, even though it's slightly too old for them, but still go because the parents bring them. They get the comic books and they delve into it. One guy in a comic book shop said for one time, he said, parents just walk up and say, I want this for my child. And they go, him there? Yeah, that's too old for him. And it is quite a lot of what we used to think of as Batman has been like, he's the Dark Knight, the word dark is in there for a reason, but the people who are really buying these things are the people with disposable income in their 20s, 30s, 50s. I know people who, they set up a camera and they unbox a hot toy they got from Japan that's like 3 foot tall and has so many moving parts, and they put that on the internet. People sit and watch them do it, and it's entertainment. Fabulous. And if I could get paid to sit and go like this, right, typing away, if someone would pay me to sit and watch me do that, I'd be quids in. I'll do that. Stick a camera on my face.
Absolutely.
But that little guy you have there, that's pretty much what most of it is. You're on your own with your head, and
You're
get
on your own.
out of your head onto the page or the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
But all those stories are up in there. There's a million stories in there, but time and money, it's a factor.
I was talking to my daughter, and I think they're too young. They still love drawing. It's not too serious for them or anything like that. They love books. They love reading. Terrific. So I think they're all good, off to a good start. And I was just talking to her and saying, look, if you're not happy to sit in a room on your own for 8 hours a day, for 9 hours a day, 10, sometimes 12, doing this to the exclusion of almost everything else, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. In fact, if somebody had said that to me when I was 17 or 18, I just don't know if I would have, because it's tough. You've got to sit down and just do the work, and that's it. And that's really difficult. But the thing is, you can't worry, or you can't, if you've decided, you made that decision, once you made that decision, you can't worry about, you've almost got to get tunnel vision and just say, I've got to get this out of me. I've just got to get this out of me. And I roared with laughter today. I was doing those roughs. I sent you through those roughs earlier today.
Which are all done, by the way. No changes there.
No, great. I know. Do you know the part? Spoiler alert. The part where the two hands come out of the darkness.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I thought, he's done it again. He's done it again. He's teasing me. I'm going to have to wait for another 15 pages before I get to draw this gorilla. But no, he turns up in the last. Well, what's that page? 18 or something. So yeah, you're waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting on these characters, and they're all. I know we've got a gorilla and Nazis and all sorts of things going on. And I just think that if that didn't come out of you in some way, it'd be a real shame. It'd be a real shame. I was thinking about it because I'm off on one. Like I'm going John Two Wolves. I want to. I want to do more with him. Tonight we'll talk about our vampire lady. Our vampire.
Oh, yeah.
She was a hit with me.
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, so you've got all this stuff going on, dragons and zombie. Have we done zombies? We haven't done zombies, have we?
No.
Not yet. Haven't done zombies. We've done almost everything else. Gorillas, dragons, vampires, clowns, Nazis.
Yeah. Which started off, as a gangster story. He was an enforcer who was found on the streets and raised by this mob boss who had no children and wasn't family orientated. And he conditioned the guy to be an enforcer and a killer without conscience. And a meet, he sends the guy out to the hero, who was Henry. Henry goes out to kill all the other enforcers who are waiting in the cars as an example that he's the boss and no one is safe. One of the guys has brought his daughter with him. So this guy Henry has no kids, doesn't understand kids, but can kill the child. So he takes it back to her mother. He walks away from his boss and his life and travels across America. And they end up in, that picture Nighthawks, where there's people sitting at a diner at night on a street corner.
Yes.
We're going to end up there.
Yes.
Yeah, it finished up there. And of course, his boss sends assassins after him and things happen. And I was talking to someone about it and they said, so Road to Perdition then? And I went, that's a great title. And he goes, no, it's Road to Perdition. And I went, okay, what's that? Had to Google it. It was already a comic. It was already a movie. And I went, crap. It happens.
Yeah.
I had this thing where a guy takes a girl across a country and learns what it is to be like a father figure, sort of.
Yeah.
And instead of having two M11 Colts, he has two hand axes. Instead of being Henry, he's Hrollt, right? So I just had to transfer everything over. And once I taught D&D, everything else filled in. He was supposed to have a little group of people with peculiar powers to help him take the girl back to her mother.
Yeah.
But by the end of issue 1, you had drawn Helga, and I went, I can't kill her off. I threw two or three characters out to make room for her. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
It's a happy circle.
That's
The story's better for
that's
it.
the creative. Yeah, it's just that creative. It feeds you, doesn't it? And that's another aspect of comics that I just love. That kind of collaborative back and forth, because ideas that I get are, there's accidents and everything, but it's always in the script. You're always really kind to me and say, you did a terrific job and invented it, but it just pops out of the script. One of the things I'd said to you, I don't know whether or not, now you've got a goatee beard. Was it ever like Hurlt's mustache and beard?
I shaved it off.
Was it ever like that?
I shaved it into that shape a couple of years ago at lockdown to annoy my wife. She hates beards and she hates this thing. It was gone. This was all gone. It just came down like that. And I was always stroking it, and she was going, oh, for God's sake. So then I just filled it in again. But I had it for
because was it? I could never remember whether or not it was me who came up with it or I'd seen you.
That was all.
And I thought,
it was there because in, like, when you see Vikings and you see Norsemen, which he's kind of based on, and they're very, very proud of mustaches. Maybe not beards so much. We tend to see beards nowadays, but if you look at old drawings and stuff of these guys on Viking longships, a lot of them have these very luxurious, very masculine mustaches, walrus type things. And again, that's where it came from. The reverse mohawk and everything else, it's to adopt that wasteland martial look about him. That keep the hair out of your side of your face, it gets in the way, and his body wasn't to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger type Conan body. It was to be a workman. Like I chop people down for a living,
Yeah, it was more sinewy, wasn't it? I think I one of the first drawings I did of him, I think I drawn him just too big. It was too big. But I remember, I can't remember just how it all happened and everything. But I remember as I drew him, whether or not you were describing him to me or it came in the script, and I started to draw him. And then whenever I kind of realized him, I went, oh, hang on a minute, Ray's, this is Ray's. People like Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney, associated, what do you call him? Todd McFarlane and Spawn. Who else? This is the guy. This is Ray's guy. This is Ray, and it was the mustache and everything, and then the mohawk, and everything. So yeah, he was. Thought this is Ray. If when they make the movie of this, I think we'll all have to grow the tashes. And talk about again, I don't want to do spoiler but for anybody who watches the video and what gets their hand on it. There's a couple of scenes in the last book, especially where he really, I thought, oh right, okay, and you know what I'm talking about, don't you? The scene I'm talking about, and it's just a bolt out of the blue. All right, you think you know this character, and then not so much, or maybe just an aspect of his character, or you think he's one way, and he's just barbarian, tough, no nonsense, ruthless, and then you get a little bit of surprise. He's not maybe as tough as you think. Do you ever find yourself writing a character and not realizing that? I know it's really blatant in SSDD, your influences, the people around you, the influence, but do you ever surprise yourselves, go, oh, actually, this is so and so?
Yeah. I did one. It was set in Dublin, dystopian future Dublin, where aliens have landed, and instead of blowing up the White House or taking people's brains, they just fix everything. They fix the ozone, they fix the water, take all the plastic out, they replant trees. They just fix everything. and there's a character in that I realized was my son,
Right.
And I did a rough draft of it, an outline, and I did a couple of pages, and I sent it to someone, and then COVID happened,
Yeah.
But I could see myself saying, I'll take that back, I'll take him out, do something different, because it was definitely him,
Exactly.
It's a guy with a great big heart, but just tends to be in the wrong place, wrong time,
Right.
But that does happen. You write what you know when you don't realize that. And I think for me, there's parts of me in everything I do, and
Yeah.
you look around and you make something real by basing it on someone it's like what you've done there. You've drawn Ralph so much that you can do him freehand. You can just draw.
Yeah.
There you go. And when writing it, it's the same thing. Once you've written so much about a character, it just writes itself then. The hand-eye coordination sort of kicks in, and you can see them. When I've got a character in my head and I really know who they are, like I can see them in my head. I can hear them talking.
I was going to say that. Can you hear their voices? You know what they're talking. I'd imagine if it was like some actor or other playing the role, you'd go and say,
yeah,
it's not how I heard his voice. You don't have any axes around the house or anything? You don't find yourself?
No. My wife's a bit of a pacifist.
Right.
She said herself, like, if we didn't have kids, I'd have a room full of like Klingon battle axes and God knows what, But when you meet me, I come across as being a quiet individual, wallflower.
Yeah.
And then people go, oh, you wrote that, or you did this, and that's the nature of people. It's first impressions, and they go, I know who you are just by looking at you. That's not true.
Yeah.
You never really know a person by looking at them. You think you do.
Yeah.
You think you're right, but you never do. So you
just look at someone, he said, yeah, he looks like a kind of nice guy, gentleman, and all of that. But he probably has a couple of axes and a mohawk and runs around doing things. It's just that escape, It's I don't know, right? I think I'd seen a photograph of you before I drew Herald, but I don't know what bubbling away subconsciously. I think he gave me a description in the Barbarian and so on and so on. And I did draw him too big at the beginning because I was thinking Schwarzenegger. But I realized after I drew him that I drawn you. I mean, I just realized this is you. This is Ray. I know what he's up to. I'm onto this guy. This is his character, which is terrific. What's the point of doing comics? I do one myself. I had a character, my own kind of. Yeah, I think we all do. I think when we're doing comics, we all do. We have our own, Peter Parker equivalent. Do you think what is it that you're driving at? Because I was reading Witch, and there's it's a family story. The three characters, I'll put them up again. It's a real family story. These three characters, really unlikely, really, there's nothing particularly connected them, but they come together in a kind of strange way. And so that's what I was thinking, okay, this is a family story.
Tell me about Helga. She was a disposable character. She was supposed to show people.
She's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So shall I? Is it okay? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. You may as well spoil it because, yeah.
This is what you do. This is what you do for anybody. Get a copy. This is Witch. It's number 1, issue 1. And you look. Well, she's on the cover, right? Okay, she's Helga. So the vampire. How would you describe Mitzi?
She's an elf, magical powers.
An elf with magical powers. I don't know whether or not to say witch or wizard or something. Anyway, a barbarian. Right. So these are the three main characters. And I remember writing this. The cover came last. The cover came sorry after I'd finished the issue. Then I went back and did the cover. And so we're going through. This is all okay. And then right in the very last panel, as you have a real joy of doing to me, like I hadn't seen this character the whole way through, right? Okay. And then we get to the last panel, and she's there, and she's apparently dead. You know, I hadn't read on, so I didn't know. I thought, oh, okay, well, she's dead. You know, and I had to go, this is ridiculous because I want to keep drawing this character. So anyway, that was her. I had to go to the next issue 2, and you know, she's on the. I'd read the script by that time. I'd done the. So she makes it to the top of the cover, and so we're going to start off where we left off in issue 1, and she doesn't stay dead for very long. So at the end of issue 1, she's speared through the chest. What was she going to die at the end of issue 2?
They were going to try and pull the troll spike out. Actually, the spear was what was important.
Right.
You know, it comes up, and then in issue 4, you haven't done issue 4 yet, but the spear actually is important for that. So what we really wanted out there was the spear, the troll pike, and because it has magical properties and it's indestructible. And she'd been at the cusp of life and death for decades. This guy's been siphoning her life force off. He feeds her buckets of human blood and gets a drop of vampire blood out and prolongs his life. But it's toxic to him. He doesn't understand that the price we paid through magic, you know, and he becomes this bloated, horrible thing. And she was supposed to die because she's just gone totally bonkers at this stage. And that was it. She was going to be ashes to ashes and never seen again. All they needed is the pike. And I had a couple of other characters that they were funny, you know, but now they're not there. No one knows they're gone because she's filling in for them, you know. But look at her. She's just so dynamic, you know, and she suits the black and white aesthetic. And
yes,
it's sort of a very sexual, striking look about her, you know. Because she's a vampire. Vampires are supposed to be sexy. And you just got the whole feral physicality of her, you know.
Yeah.
And it was quite obvious that you just liked drawing her, you know.
Loved drawing her. I had horror comics, you know, Dracula comic books and horror. I loved horror movies. And the inspiration for it is Caroline Munro from I think from Captain Kronos. She's been in Dracula as well.
Yeah, that's her.
Vampire Hunter. You know, and I just remember being a wee boy and thinking, who is that woman? Who is that woman? And that's absolutely the inspiration. And there's Vampirella and, I don't know, Vampirella is probably the most famous female vampire. But it's almost a genre on its own, you know. It's almost a kind of...
Sorry, you have a visitor.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You got a visitor. Can't have a Two Pugs podcast without a pug making an appearance.
It's like that show, you know, they get the politician where the kids keep coming in behind him. He's on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Good girl. Right.
It's time for somebody's supper or walk, maybe.
She misses us.
Yeah,
so
she...
You do. You're a good girl. Yeah. But yeah,
that's
Caroline
the
Munro.
Inspiration. Yeah. Caroline Munro was absolutely the inspiration. There's probably unended, but all those vampire movies. And I think with vampire, there's that association with blood, obviously, but blood and sex, I guess.
Yeah.
There's that undertone going on. So yeah, just what a character. And just you could have told me to tone it down a bit. I don't think she's that.
No, she hit the right note with her. You know.
Yeah.
Nothing has been revealed.
Yeah, no.
She does exactly what it says on the tin there. It's
what I love about it is that I gave her. It's almost like her dress as a character. It kind of turns into wings, and you know, 1 minute she's flying off, and next minute she's they just disappear. And it's just me having fun and goofing, you know.
Well, you gave me the idea of it being a skin. That you can either be covered up during the day or have her wings at night, because when she attacks at night, she uses the wings to swoop down on people. You know, she does that in the third book anyway. And she's a good counterpoint to Nessie, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it, but she's a great addition to the book. You know, she's not just a startling character. She fits in. You know, if I didn't tell you that I meant to kill her off, you'd swear she was there from the start. You know, and she was.
I had no idea. Yeah,
really
you were going to kill her off. She was, yeah.
A happy accident, or maybe you're in tune somewhere. I don't know, but she just worked so well in that now.
Yeah, she's terrific character. I don't know if this. Don't tell me if this is the case. I'll just be a great discovery if I come upon it. That like I'd really love a scene where she goes, you know, crackers. You know, she really, you know, word feral. You know, she's fangs, like she's gone full vampire. Throat tearing and blood and all of that stuff. That'd be great. Scene to do. Yeah, what a character! What an absolute character.
Well, there's a climactic battle in the bathroom where the big swimming pool is in the last episode.
Yes.
They all get involved in that, and everything comes into play. Her powers, Messie's powers, the pike, the whole thing. Her vampire teeth, the whole thing. You know, she wears special battle fangs that can cut through.
Yes,
they were her sisters, and she gets to use them in the final scene. You know, and it's not a sad ending. Some of my things are sad. This is a sort of an adventure, and you know, good things happen at the end. Let's just say that. You know,
I don't believe for a second you'll be done with these characters once that particular story is told. I don't think you're going to be able to.
Literally, if we had more time, like if this was a book that a publisher had picked up and we're doing every month, we'd have a ball with it because there's so much. But you never know. You know, wait and see.
You never know. Maybe we should pitch it to Image or something. See if we can get an Image book out of it. What does it feel like for you having, you know, whenever they come back and your work's in a shop? I mean, it just blows my brain, you know, seeing work that I've done in a shop or something for sale on Amazon even. It's just crazy.
When it's done, it's done. I've moved on already to like 3 other things. But when I see someone sitting, I saw a young lad in a small convention here in Dublin, and he bought a comic and he sat down on the sofa and he read it, and I could see him going, you know, and he's like 15, I'd say, and he came back over and he bought the next issue. I went, okay, that's great, that's good. When that happens, it's great. You know,
that's good. That's a good feeling. Yeah.
And the message you get from people, and the people who walk up to the table and talk to you, and the people I work with now have bought quite a lot of comics off me, and they all say the same thing. You know, when's the next one due out? Well, what happens now? Tell me what happens. Don't be spoiled, but tell me what happens. That's a great feeling. You know.
Yeah.
But it's literally just the process. People don't realize the process just takes so long. You know, talking going. I did like 6 months worth of research for that, and in the end I could have just made her up, you know.
We're going to have to maybe give Talking Gun like 2 episodes just to itself, because that's a big one, isn't it? That's a real that's an epic. That's a real epic.
There's a lot of weird things in that now that you know, that's Salem's Lot meets the Wild Bunch, you know. It's, you know.
Yeah, that's a good description. That's really.
I'm just in awe of that. See what you're doing there. I just think, what magic is this? You know, it's just, I can think that, but I can't draw that.
It's wondered, like, you know, how I just sometimes wonder, because this all goes on in my head. If I didn't get a script through to draw it, it goes on in my head anyway. Like you're saying about the stories, you know, you're thinking about them all the time. And I think I'm terrified of thinking if I can't do this, because if I can't do this, I just don't know what else I'll do. I really don't. It's weird. It's an odd kind of. I try not to think about it too much because it's frightening, you know. But if I couldn't, I really don't know what else I could do, because it goes on in my head, really all the time. I'm just thinking about, I see shapes, I see things in shapes. I was over doing a talk at school there last week, and the kids were doing the same kind of thing. They were looking at it and, what do you do? What do you mean? How you explain this to us? How do you do that? And then I broke it down for them and said, right, okay, we'll all do this, and showed them just really simple techniques, and they were absolutely blown away. Yes. So when they see just it really broken down to simple, and also whenever you say to them in comic books, like, you can get paid for coloring in, absolutely blown away. Like, they just can't. You crazy, mate. I don't know who you are, but get out of our school. Nobody pays you for coloring in. Oh yeah.
You were talking about PJ Holden earlier.
Yeah.
He made a point, and I did a course with him, and he made a point that the thing the artist likes to draw is usually going to be the biggest thing on the page. He likes Judge Dredd, so Judge Dredd is the biggest thing on the page. So do you ever find that if you have like 6 characters, the one you like to draw, like Helga, she's front and center, and everything else is sort of slotted in around her? I know she's very really dramatic, Messi herself isn't dramatic until she uses her powers,
Yes, she's a really slight girl of character, and those ones in the Anomaly Squad were all fighting for space. And, I was kind of, okay, where do I put the camera here to do that? And I suppose the person who's talking gets center stage, for me. You just sort of pop heads and around them. But the person thing, there was actually, I was going to talk to you about that, because there's, in the roughs that I sent you today, there's a couple of sequences. And I thought, okay, because those 3 characters turn up in the last page.
Snipers, yeah.
And you've got to position them. And I thought, how am I going to do this? Because that means there's 5 characters, and 2 of them were talking to each other back and forth. And you're going, right, I've got to be really careful here, because I think you described those 2 characters were at the front, kind of looking at the building that we're talking, and these characters come from behind. You think, right, okay, you're going to have to be really careful here and see when you change.
Yeah.
When the camera comes around to see, where am I going to put this camera to be seen? Because you've got to see all of them. And I think they're sort of aligned on side profile. So I'm not 100% sure.
There's a panel with sort of like Top Gun, so they're all looking up into the air like that.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that one.
Yeah. That was the only, see, that's the thing. It sort of dictates, you go, okay, I've got 5 characters here. Now, thankfully, you didn't do, like in City of Clowns. I remember a couple of times that there was. Do you remember the time where they're washing the elephant?
Oh yeah.
How many characters were there? Plus an elephant, and they're kind of running around, and there's an elephant. I was like, right, okay, where's it? Right, okay, where's the camera going to go here? Plus, they're all clowns, so you go, who's the most important character here? I think somebody stood in a bucket, and there was an inspector character, so there's kind of clowns running around, and then an inspector clown or something, I can't remember, but it's really chaos. But that's great fun, like, it's just bonkers fun. Whereas today, there was 5 characters, but thankfully you'd given me that they're all doing the same thing. They're all looking at this building up here. So there's no running around, no elephant, no... although there is a gorilla.
Yes. He's the very first, and the only person to read it was my editor on Dead Bones column, Matt from Cork.
Right.
I wrote the very first draft of that immediately after I wrote Dead Bones. And it was more about a speedster young lad who was burning through his life, getting older every time you saw him. And he was trying to help out at the crime scene, at the hostage negotiation. And the gorilla was his friend. But we realized that it's really the Flash and Gorilla Grodd that I was doing. So I took the speedster out and found a different avenue into the magic element of things. But I couldn't do without the gorilla. He spoke to me, but he had a much bigger presence in the first draft. He does come back a few times now, and he sort of has a happy ending. At the end.
Really?
Yes,
because he's a brute. Like he's a naughty boy. He's a real.
Yeah. Well, he does things he shouldn't do, but he doesn't come to a happy end. He comes to quite a happy end at the end.
Do you know about gorilla monkeys in comics in the 50s and 60s?
No, what?
There was this weird thing. I remember seeing comics and not really understanding. There's things like Batmite and
I hate Batmite. I hate it.
Actually, what is this crap? And what do you call in Superman, Mr. Mxyzptlk or something?
Mxyzptlk.
I don't know. I don't. That's not my thing. And I'd seen some old comics, and there was a load of gorillas, like Bat Gorilla and Super Gorilla or something like this. And I was like, "What is this? What is this crap?" These things. But apparently, in the 50s, they realized that monkeys or gorillas on covers of sold really well.
Yeah.
They. I don't know.
Some guy wrote a list
of
things. He was a famous publisher or editor or something. He wrote a list of things that you should have on your cover if you want to sell it. And one of the things was monkeys or gorillas. And I think one of them was flames and something else. But yeah, I've heard that. He wrote this like 5 or 6 items on a list that you put it on your cover of your comic, it'll sell. Because people go, I'll have that. Take a look at that. And you're right, yeah.
So do you think for the collection of SSDD we should have fire-breathing gorilla?
Yeah.
With machine gun.
Looking at her there, she looks innocent in a way,
Yeah, I gotta find her up.
Yeah,
she's more under the eyes, maybe.
Wow.
I haven't got a red marker to do dripping blood, but
I believe her as a vampire. It only takes something small. You seem to you seem to fixate on certain things that make the character.
I try to really simplify it. I don't know. I get this thing. I don't know whether or not you. I was really worried about it right for a while. I thought, I've got this thing. People say to me about being cartoony. You're too cartoony. You're too cartoony in this, as if it's a put down or a criticism, and I don't see it as a criticism. I go, so what are you talking about? You're talking about a guy, Superman, for God's sake, or what do you mean this is stupid? But I don't know. I just try and refine it, make it as simple as possible, because I'm worried about that, and I'm worried about inking. I don't think I'm a great inker, and I'm worried about it, and it's this thing in the back of my mind about being too cartoony. So. But I just enjoy it. It's just funny. Whenever you're drawing a gorilla, you go, oh my God, if you can't have fun drawing a gorilla, what the
hell? It's very difficult. It's difficult for me to try and write something outside my comfort zone. Mm. It must be difficult if someone says, can you change your style? Kind of way. Your hand, eye, the way you see the world is there. The magic flows a certain way. I know a guy called Kevin Keane. A lot of his early stuff looked very similar because that's his style. And then a couple of years back, he did a complete U-turn. I was talking to him. They brought out a comic himself and another lad, Wayne. They brought out World War II vampire comic. And at the launch, we all went down and I looked at it and I said, that's Kevin Keane, that was Kevin had drawn that. And he said, that's the last time you'll see that kind of style. And he'd been working on a different kind of style, and now he's working with Tom McFarlane. His whole, you would not think, you'd imagine that he'd been in a coma and woke up and now he could speak Chinese. This art style, completely different, revolutionary, very striking, very light source orientated, just glints off
Right.
figure. Fabulous stuff now. But it must be incredibly difficult to do that, though. He must have gone through torture, because he's literally trying to train himself to do something completely different, If like me
I
trying
think
to write God knows what, I couldn't connect to it, I've tried writing superhero stories and I can't connect to them,
Just can't connect with superhero.
It's I don't understand it. I don't know what they're about or where they're really from. I can make fun of them. And that's the closest I can get to the knowledge of, your style is cartoony. You can go dark when you want to, though. There's panels there that are really, really dark and inked to hell and back, and they really jump out. Your style works with what we have, It's a friendly style. You can do things that wouldn't really offend people because it's an open style, You drew a Nazi for me. You didn't make him look arch, if you know what I mean. He's acceptable. I don't know whether it would work for like a haunted house thing, like Lock and Key, where it has to look a certain way, Then Lock and Key is a completely different story that I would tell, It's horses for courses, though,
That's what I think. I don't have the same hang up. And then I look at other people's work and I go, what do you mean? Look at this. This is cartoony as hell, you guys. And then you think of the style, Mike Mignola's really early style and how you could see traces of what he was going for, early in his work.
Yeah.
But then it just seemed like he went, nah, I'm just doing it this way. I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want,
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I just think you can't get bogged. If you think about that, it's a real waste of your time and energy. You can only draw what you draw, and that's it. Just be the best that you can draw and just get on with it,
Well, there's darker stories that you tell with light, like Sin City. If you drew that as a full color comic, it would be brash and I'm not so sure it would have been as popular. The way he did it, the story he told, it worked. The pieces worked together, Like your style works for Witch. It's great. It works for SSDD. I don't see any point in changing it. Now, if you say to me, I want to write, now we did a thing, we weren't successful. We did a thing for an anthology, but we didn't get into it. But it was about a Greek sort of Valkyrie type character. It was an EMT. That would have suited very, very dark panels because the whole thing is very noir and dark. A lot of what we do, though, is out in the open. It's not haunted house. You know what I mean? It's. And if I was writing a story about the Minotaur, it would probably need to be darker. Not just in tone, but it's an emotional thing people get when they see a picture. And the less they see, the less detail, the more blocky sometimes, the more people are willing to understand that what's happening in the panel rather than try to explain too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I just think that everybody brings to what they're looking at, whatever is going on. You can't allow yourself to. You just have to take the good and the bad as far as people's interpretation and compliments are concerned. And and I do a lot of really young, because I've got a cartoony style. I do a lot of kind of young comics, for kids and stuff. And I love it. I really, it's not, but it's whenever I detect somebody else's tone that they say, oh, it's too cartoony, and make it a criticism, because I don't say it as a criticism, especially whenever you were just mentioning Sin City there. And I remember reading Sin City and how grimy and dirty and all of that Sin City is. But then you draw, Frank Miller would draw those hands of Marv's,
Yeah.
And you go, wow, this is the most cartoony thing in the whole world. You literally have hands this sort of size, you know?
Yeah.
And you go, this is the most bloody cartoony thing. What do you give me hassle for, you know?
We got so carried away, we forgot to film an outro. So I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Jim for chatting with me. You can find Jim on Twitter at JimLavery1, on Facebook, or email him at papercranecomics@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at twopugsPub, or on Facebook at twopugspublishingireland, and on a new Instagram at twopugspublishing. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week.